For more on China's renewed ties with New Zealand, we have Sourabh Gupta, an international relations policy expert, joining us now. It's interesting. I was watching an analyst from Auckland today, and I just wanted to, I lifted a quote from him. He said, "Free trade is the reason New Zealanders are getting ahead. It's because of free trade. The deal with China is a standout success, billions more than we ever expected, and there is still a mile of potential," is how he put it. So what does an FTA upgrade look like between New Zealand and China, do you think? And then, of course, the talks, as he mentioned, starting late next month.
China, as your correspondent said, New Zealand was the very first country, Western country, to sign an FTA way back in 2008, 2009. So that FTA has become somewhat dated. Much of that focused in terms of farm trade, and particularly in the dairy sector. But it also created sort of thresholds, safeguard levels beyond which they could export, but then that would be at higher tariffs. Now the goal is to ensure, one, that dairy has greater unimpeded access to the Chinese market. But here's the important point. The point is to move beyond just trade in goods or trade in agricultural products and move into trade in services, as correspondent again told, trade facilitation, logistics, investment cooperation. So just broaden this whole thing, whole dynamic out, and try to upgrade the relationship on that basis.
It's interesting you talked about 2008. The Prime Minister talked about this relationship with China. He called it the engine room, which kept the New Zealand economy actually afloat during the deep recessionary times of 2009, 2010. Premier Lee and the Prime Minister English also kind of speak the same language. Sound economics, both of them talking about trade in a global landscape. Talk to me a little bit about their relationship, because earlier you and I focused on the Turnbull relationship with Lee. It seems like English and Lee also hitting it off very well.
Hitting it off very well. And it helps that Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, Anglo-Saxon countries, but countries open to business and countries very with a vested interest in stabilizing the international trade system and keeping it open, are playing such a great emphasis out here. Frankly, when David Cameron was still there in the UK, even he was very much on board the US-China, the China-UK relationship. So of course, it's very important that senior leaders have good relations with each other, as we saw happening just automatically with Premier Lee and with Premier English. But it helps that these countries are all open for business. And ever since, I would say, going back to the Hangzhou summit, that has been the theme of China, and much before too. This is a difficult time in the global economy, and it is an all important countries, middle powers as well as great powers, have a systemic interest in keeping that open and consolidating what has been achieved and taking it to the next level.
In real estate, they say it's location, location, location. So let's talk a little bit about New Zealand's location, because it's really interesting jumping on the One Belt, One Road train. I was reading today that it makes perfect sense. 8 of New Zealand's top 20 export markets are along this road. 10 of New Zealand's top 20 export markets have signed on for the One Belt, One Road. So this really works in favor for both of these countries, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And this is also, as I should have said earlier, is one of the areas where the relationship has been expanded. It has moved from just trade in goods and trade in agricultural products to services, investment, but also development cooperation. And China has been very active in signing development cooperation and development partnership agreements with many of its neighbors. And both Australia and, in this case, New Zealand also see tremendous opportunities where the two can pair up together, both in their own country and in other parts of Asia, where they can work together in terms of developing.
Well, direct flights also increasing by 20%. I've gone to New Zealand and China, both great places to go on vacation. That's good for both, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The more people-to-people contact you have is essential, and you just don't want it to be just business-to-business contact and people flying on business. You want actual people-to-people contact. I remember I said last week that in Sydney, you see more Asian Australians in Sydney than you see white Australians. I haven't been to New Zealand, but I'm sure it's a beautiful place. And the more Asian New Zealanders you have out there in the big cities in Wellington, et cetera, Auckland and Christchurch, I'm sure it'll be a great thing. People-to-people contact, essentially at the end of day, is what really gets relationships strengthened and consolidated. and it's a long, long flight, but I'm sure there are many people on both sides willing to make that.
All right, Sourabh Gupta, always a pleasure seeing you. We'll let you go. Maybe you can catch one of those flights right now. Thanks so much.
Thank you.